guys, it's Yennie, and the book I'd like to introduce today is called The Solitude of Prime Numbers by Paolo Giordano. Paolo Giordano, the author himself, was born in 1982, December 19th, in Turin, Italy, and although there isn't much about his childhood, he moves on to attend the University of Turin where he studied physics, and he also got his PhD later on for theoretical particle physics. In 2008, he also published his first book called The Solitude of Prime Numbers, where he also won the Premio Strega Award for it, and he was also deemed the youngest novelist to ever win this award. Moving on to the story itself, the story of the book takes place in the exact same place the author was born, in Italy, Turin, and is about two outcasts named Alice and Maria. Alice and Maria were both outcasts, and because of that, they come to know each other well in their high school years. However, Maria always considered Alice and his relationship as twin primes. Twin primes are numbers like 3 and 5, in which there's always an even number in between them that separates them from ever touching or becoming as close. And this is the kind of relationship that Alice and Maria both held. Eventually, Alice moves on to become a photographer, and Maria moves on to become a mathematician, and they pretty much separate their ways. However, later on in the book, Alice sends an invitation to Maria, urgently asking for him to come visit her, and because of that, their paths reunite. But they soon come to realize that there will always be a wall in between them that separates them from ever touching and becoming as close as they could have been. And because of that, they realize that the relationship will always stay as twin primes. Moving on to my interpretation of the book, the biggest point or interpretation that I had was the fact that the story took place in the exact same place the author was born in. I think it's just because the author kind of wanted to create a connection between himself and the book. Another is the theme of the book. I think the theme of this book is making choices. It was very prominent throughout the whole book, and many of the characters had to make choices, and these choices often affected them in the future, and I think the author trying to convey the message that every choice you make in the past or even in the present will always affect you in the future later on. Another is the fact that Maria is an incredibly genius, smart child, and I think the author kind of saw himself in Maria because the author himself is also a very smart person. And I'm not calling him a genius or anything, but I still think the author kind of saw or created Maddie as a character in his image. And finally, I'd like to talk about my opinions on this book. Although generally I liked this book a lot, there were quite some parts that I think could have been improved throughout the whole book, and the most biggest point that could have been improved, I believe, is the ending. The ending was quite disappointing for me because it was what you would consider an open ending. An open ending is just the kind of ending that kind of allows the readers to interpret what would happen to the characters after the book ends and make the readers think about the ending of the book later on. But I personally dislike it because it just kind of makes the book seem incomplete and leaves me confused, and I just prefer an ending which has a proper cut to it and ends either bad or well. However, despite the ending, the characters of the book I think kind of evened everything out. The characters were probably the most positive point throughout this whole book, and they were very well made, and on top of that, they developed really well throughout the whole story. And you can see them develop both mentally and also physically as people. Overall, I personally enjoy this book a lot, and I think a lot of people can enjoy it too. However, the age group for this book is pretty narrow. It's probably from young adults to adults, but I think either way, this book was very well made, very interesting, and I would definitely recommend you guys to read it. And one last thing I'd like to mention before I end the video is a quote from the book by Paolo Giordano, and it goes, "Choices are made in brief seconds and paid for in the time that remains." So please keep that in mind when you read the book. So if you have any time, please try checking it out and give it a shot. Thank you!